Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're prepping for your competitive exams, you know just how critical international organizations are. So today, we're going to break down one of the big ones, the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF. Think of this as your go-to guide for absolutely nailing this topic. So let's just jump right in with a massive question. In this crazy, interconnected world, who actually gets to point a finger at a country and say, hey, you've got a major problem with dirty money or funding for terrorism? Who is the global referee in this super high stakes game? Well, that's exactly what the FATF is all about. Okay, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll cover the basics of what the FATF is. Then, we'll dive into its rulebook, the famous recommendations. After that, we'll get into its most powerful tools, the Black and Gray lists. We'll look at its global network, its real-world impact and criticisms. And then, the most important part for you, we'll wrap it all up with the key takeaways you absolutely have to know for your exams. All right, Section 1, the Global Watchdog. Let's get right into what this organization is and, why it even exists in the first place. So, the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF. The most important thing to get is that it's a policy-making body. It's not a global police force, it can't arrest anyone or slap on direct sanctions. Instead, what it does is set the global standards, the rules of the road, if you will, that countries are supposed to follow to keep their financial systems clean. Oh, and you might see its French name, GAFI, pop up in your readings, so just know it's the same thing. So where did this thing come from? Well, you have to go back to 1989. The G7 countries got together and basically said, we've got to do something about this whole money laundering thing. But its mission got a huge update. The real turning point was 2001. After the 9/11 attacks, its job expanded in a massive way to include fighting the financing of terrorism. And since then, it's grown to 40 members, which just shows you how important it's become. And that brings us to its two core missions. For your exams, you absolutely need to know these two acronyms, AML, anti-money laundering, and CFT, combating the financing of terrorism. Here's a super simple way to remember it. Just think of the FATF's job as cleaning the empty wallet, right? M for money laundering, T for terrorist financing. An empty wallet for the bad guys. Okay, so if the FATF sets global standards, how does it actually do that? Well, that leads us to Section 2, the recommendations. You can think of these as the FATF's main product. This is literally the global rulebook. Now, for any exam, key numbers are gold. And the single most important number you can associate with the FATF is 40 plus 9. Now, this isn't some math problem you have to solve. It's the very core of the international standards against financial crime. So what exactly do these numbers mean? Let's break it down. It's pretty straightforward. You've got 40 recommendations that are all about tackling money laundering. And then you have 9 special recommendations that were added specifically to target terrorist financing. Together, they create the global benchmark. The whole idea is that every country takes these standards and turns them into their own laws and regulations. And they are super comprehensive. They cover pretty much everything a country needs to do. So what do these recommendations actually tell countries to do? Well, it really boils down to these 4 key steps. First, you have to make money laundering and financing terrorism actual crimes in your country. Second, you have to regulate your banks and financial institutions so they know who their customers are. That's called customer due diligence. Third, every country needs to set up a financial intelligence unit, or FIU, to look at suspicious reports. And fourth, you've got to cooperate with other countries. Crime is global, so the response has to be global too. Now, having a rule book is one thing, but making people follow it, that's a whole other story. And this brings us to the FATF's most well-known and powerful tool, its watch lists. This is how it really puts pressure on countries to get in line. The FATF has 2 main lists that everyone talks about. The Blacklist is the really serious one. It's for countries that are considered high risk, and the FATF calls on everyone to take action against them. The Greylist is for countries that have promised to fix their issues, but are now under much closer supervision. Here's a great mnemonic for your exam. Think of it like a traffic light. The Blacklist is a red light, stop, and apply countermeasures. The Greylist is a yellow light, proceed with caution and watch very, very closely. And here's a look at the current lists as of late 2025. You can see the Blacklist has some very familiar names, North Korea, Iran, and Myanmar. The Gray list is, well, a lot longer. Now, for your exam, recent updates are absolutely crucial. So take a look at the note. Countries like Burkina Faso, Mozambique, Nigeria, and South Africa were recently taken off the Gray list. that shows they're making progress, and it's exactly the kind of current affairs detail that could get you extra marks. Okay, so we know what the FATF does and how it flexes its muscle, but who is actually in the FATF? Let's take a look at its global network. The core of the FATF is a pretty exclusive club. It's made up of 38 individual countries, plus two big regional organizations, the European Commission and the Gulf Cooperation Council. The important thing here is that this small group includes almost all of the world's major financial centers, which gives its decisions a ton of weight. And who are we talking about? Well, it's the heavyweights of the global economy, the US, China, the UK, Germany. But the most crucial point for us is right there. India is a full member. That means India has a seat at the table, helping to set these global financial rules. And just as a side note, look at Russia. Its membership is currently suspended, which just goes to show how real-world geopolitics can play a role here. But the FATF's influence goes way beyond those 40 members. It works through this whole network of 9 associate members called FATF-style regional bodies, or FSRBs. These regional groups are what make sure the FATF standards are being followed all over the world. For India and its neighbors, the one to know is the Asia/Pacific Group, or APG. Now, no organization is perfect. And for a truly solid analytical answer in your exams, you've got to be able to show both sides of the story. So let's look at the impact of the FATF, both the good and the not so good. The impact of being put on that blacklist is just immense. Even though the FATF doesn't impose sanctions itself, the whole global financial system listens. It's kind of like the world's financial community giving a country the worst possible credit score. Suddenly, it gets way harder to get international loans, foreign investment just vanishes, and the cost of doing business goes through the roof. It's a very powerful reason for countries to clean up their act. But there are some pretty big criticisms. Some critics point out that despite all this effort, less than 1% of criminal profits are actually seized worldwide. There are also some unintended side effects. For example, sometimes the strict rules have made it really hard for legitimate charities and NGOs to do their work. And finally, there's this constant cat and mouse game where criminals just move their money to newer, less regulated spaces like crypto to stay off the radar. Phew, we have covered a lot of ground, so let's pull it all together into one simple, comprehensive revision note. This is the part you'll want to come back to. This is all the high-yield stuff you need for your exam. Okay. Let's do a super quick revision. What is FATF? It's an intergovernmental body started in 1989 by the G7, with its headquarters in Paris. What's its job? The dual mandate: fight money laundering and terrorist financing. Remember our mnemonic? It cleans the empty wallet. Its main tool? The 40+9 recommendations. Who's in it? 38 countries plus 2 regional organizations. And remember, India is a full member. How does it enforce rules? The lists. Remember the traffic lights. The blacklist is a red light for high-risk places like North Korea, Iran, and Myanmar. And the Greylist is a yellow light for countries being monitored. And finally, its reach is global through bodies like the APG. And its impact is massive: financial pressure. And we'll end with a question to get you thinking. The FATF was created in 1989 in a world of paper and traditional banks. But today, money flashes across the globe in seconds through crypto and digital wallets. So the big question is, can a framework designed for the 20th century really keep up with the new face of 21st century financial crime? Definitely something to think about. That's all for now. Best of luck with your preparation.